You're listening to an Airwave Media Podcast.
Hello, and thanks for joining Revolution 250. This is where we remember events that took place 250 years ago this week. It's a short bonus episode from the American Revolution podcast to remember these important 250th anniversaries of the Revolutionary War. This week, we remember the first public reading of the Declaration of Independence, which took place on July 8, 1776. Congress approved the final wording of the Declaration of Independence on July 4th. Contrary to popular belief, the delegates did not sign the declaration at that time. On the evening of the 4th, Congress sent a draft copy to a local Philadelphia printer named John Dunlap. He spent the night printing about 200 copies of the document, which were ready the following day, July 5th. That version contains only two people's names at the bottom. One is John Hancock, the President of the Continental Congress. The other is Charles Thompson, who was the Secretary of Congress. The word unanimous also does not appear in the original printing. New York still had not approved the declaration. The original copy of the declaration that went to Dunlap for printing has been lost to history. It was most likely thrown away after the printer completed his work. Dunlap printed broadsides, which were returned to Congress to be sent to the various state legislatures, committees, and to military leaders. There are only about 26 copies of the Dunlap Declaration that are known to exist today. To dispel another popular myth, no one in the Continental Congress, nor anyone else, ever bothered to send a copy to the King of Britain, or anyone else in London. However, several copies did reach the British Army, which was at the time off the coast of New York. Admiral Howe and General Howe sent 2 copies of the original Dunlap version back to London. One was in a letter dated July 28th, the other in one dated August 11th. Now, the letters don't say exactly how the British Army received them. It does say that they fell into their hands by accident. The declaration was not a petition, nor was it specifically directed at any individuals. It was a declaration to the world that the former British colonies in North America were now free and independent states. As such, they had no duty to inform anyone in London about their activities. Most people received word of the declaration through newspapers. On Saturday, July 6th, the Pennsylvania Evening Post published the first full text of the declaration, filling its front page and continuing on to page 2. On July 9th, the Pennsylvanischer Staatsbote printed a German translation of the declaration for German-speaking communities in Pennsylvania. On July 10th, 2 more Philadelphia newspapers also printed it. The first newspaper to publish the declaration outside of Philadelphia was the New York Packet, which published it on July 11th. By the end of August, at least 29 U.S. newspapers had published the full text of the declaration, and there had been at least 14 separate printings to distribute the document as a broadside. At noon on Monday, July 8th, the people gathered outside the Pennsylvania State House, what we today call Independence Hall, for the first official public reading of the Declaration. Colonel John Nixon read the full declaration to an excited crowd. 2 other towns, Trenton, New Jersey, and Easton, Pennsylvania, also held public readings at the same day and time. There's some evidence that the assistant clerk, Timothy Matlatt, actually read a copy aloud on the afternoon of July 4th, but if it happened, that reading, which received no notice, was heard by very few people. July 8th was Election Day in Philadelphia, though. They were voting on the new Constitutional Convention delegates, so there were many more people present. Following the reading on July 8th, 9 associators took down the King's arms and threw them on a public bonfire. John Adams reported to a friend that the people responded to the reading with 3 cheers and, quote, the ceremony was followed by general festivities, including ringing bells, a parade on the Commons, and burning the King's arms. The next day, July 9th, George Washington had the Declaration read publicly in New York City. The crowd responded by tearing down a statue of King George. The metal from that statue was used to make 40,000 musket balls for the Continental Army. I hope you've enjoyed this Revolution 250 moment. For more on the story, check out episode 99 of the American Revolution podcast at blog.amrevpodcast.com. And please subscribe for free to the whole podcast on whatever platform you like. Thanks again for listening to this Revolution 250 moment on the American Revolution podcast.